So in this video, we're going to discuss the terms series and parallel and what they mean in the context of a synthesizer. Then, sticking with our modular approach to instrument racks in Ableton, we're also going to examine signal flow within Ableton and look at some of the differences that audio routing can have on your sound. In synth terminology, the terms series and parallel generally refer to a configuration of filters and how audio passes through them. In a capable synthesizer with multiple filters, for example analog, massive, decam synth squad, etc., signal flow is arrangeable in either series or parallel, or sometimes a more complex combination of the two, using variable amounts. But to start with, let's just have a look at the basics. Traditionally, subtractive synthesizers have the following signal flow: oscillator to filter to amp stage to output, with envelopes and LFOs potentially controlling each stage as indicated in this diagram. While this configuration allows for many cool tones to be created, it's also probably the most basic you'll ever encounter. If we double up the configuration to add another of each component, we're then looking at a basic block diagram that represents Ableton's analog synth. You can think of series as essentially meaning in a row. In this case, audio from both oscillators is going to filter 1, and then to the amp stage for its output. When we introduce filter 2 into the flow in a series arrangement, audio passes from filter 1 to filter 2 before going to the output. This means that although filter 1 is affecting the signal coming from the oscillators, filter 2 is not affecting the oscillator's output. It's actually affecting the output of filter 1, which is what's passed on to the synth's output. In this arrangement in Ableton's analog, we have the filters operating in series, with an oscillator going to filter 1 and its output being sent 100% to filter 2. With the first filter set to a highly resonant low pass and the second filter being a high pass, we can hear an acidy nasal tone, made even more pronounced by a little bit of an envelope on filter 1. Notice that only the second amp stage of analog is active. This means that only filter 2's output is being sent from the synthesizer. Parallel, however, essentially means side by side. In this arrangement in our diagram, we have an oscillator being sent to both filters, which are then sent to the synthesizer's output. This can allow for some dramatic and complex effects using a single oscillator. For example, here we have another instance of Ableton's analog, with the filter set up in parallel. Very similar to our first patch, filter 1 is a low pass with a bit of resonance, and filter 2 is a high pass. But because the oscillator is being sent to both filters, and both filters' output is being passed to the output of the synth, the sound is completely different from our previous example. Different synths have different ways of implementing this. Some operate on kind of like an either-or principle, in which you have some strict options on how your audio is routed, whereas others allow for more complex combinations of signal flow. In this example in analog, one oscillator is being sent to both filters, and both filters are being sent to the synth's output in parallel, but filter 1 is also being sent to filter 2, which introduces a whole other subtle nuance to the sound. One of the most powerful aspects of Ableton's rack system in terms of sound design is its ability to split signal flow in the same manner as a synthesizer, with configurable arrangements. And again, this touches on our modular approach. Here I've taken our simple analog patch from the last example and I've added some effects. In this case, some distortion, chorus, and reverb. Here we can hear the same patch, but split into two parallel channels thanks to an audio effect rack, with the distortion on one channel and the chorus and reverb on the other. Note the difference between the two. By adding filters and effects to parallel channels, we can use the output of one or more synthesizers in complex fashions that allow for many different sonic possibilities. Like we touched on in the last video, treating this rack as an overall instrument, not really just as a synthesizer and its subsequent effects, is in line with our overall modular approach. And we'll save this and return to it later on.